This is Bad Marriages in the Bible, and we are your hosts. I'm Sean.
I'm Kate.
We are the directors of Dandelion Ministries, where we use creative expression to magnify the grace of Jesus Christ in places of pain. We want you to know his love for you where you're actually hurting, because that's where you are aware that you need something. And so that's the wonderful thing, that he actually meets you where you're hurting. And we want to use things that get around our rational defenses. You know, we love using art, music, retreats, basically creating space for people to begin to hear a word, to actually not be rushing from one thing to the next, not defending ourselves with busyness or with our illusions of success and grandeur that we love to walk in every day and present to the world. I certainly do. I want you all to think that I'm amazing and awesome
you are
all the
amazing.
time. Yes.
but in Sean's case, it's true.
Right. Thank you. And but the truth of the matter is that I'm hurting a lot, and I need to be encouraged. I need to be comforted. I need to hear a word that is actually stronger than my bad days, and stronger than my best days.
And stronger than your facades.
My what?
Your facades.
My facades. Exactly. That's exactly right. So, and that is what we love to do. We love to share that message with you. And we use things like this podcast to do that. This is Bad Marriages, as we said in the Bible. And we talk about it that way, as you've heard if you've listened to the show before. Just to convey the reality that these are regular people all throughout the Bible, just like you and me, that God has interrupted and gotten involved in their lives. And he has made himself known to them. And he's actually used them to tell us how he meets people in their brokenness. And what better place than our primary relationships, where we actually are as vulnerable as you possibly can be on this earth. There's no other relationship, frankly. The parent-child one is close, but it's still not the same.
Yeah, because it's one where the parent is meant to let go of the child, and a friendship may bud, and continue lifelong, but ultimately it's not becoming one flesh. That's not
right.
that.
It's
that's
not that
not,
close. And that's right.
It's not the same language.
Yeah. And so with a marriage, it is truly being known in your nakedness, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So it is a wonderful relationship to look at and to see what it means to actually receive grace and forgiveness.
Yeah, certainly you need it. If there's anybody who can see past the facade, it is the spouse.
It is. It is.
And marriage is one of being undressed throughout your life. And the previous podcasts, we had looked at the way the Gospel of John in the early part of Jesus's ministry, John the Baptist, Jesus's cousin, who was sent ahead of him to get everybody ready and point out who he was. They all described Jesus as the bridegroom who God had sent. He is God himself, but he was also the Son of God who had come for his bride, his wayward bride, who is the church, anybody who believes in his name, and anybody who'd been waiting for God's chosen one to come in the Old Testament, or banking on God as a merciful God, as a gracious God who calls himself, who reveals himself. So anybody before Jesus would recognize him. They were trusting in God to be a God of grace, and then Jesus announces that. I was just reading Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. And there is a very sad moment where a couple, they've been married for about 6 years, and the wife just breaks down and is like, I hate you. And there's, I'm not going to give away names or anything like that. There's more than one couple, many characters in this book. But that is all too often the kind of pain that happens in marriage, to be seen and not wanted, or it's too painful or too much, or, there's, the wounds are too great. And this is the kind of gravity that, and that's a fictional character. But that is why Jesus, using this metaphor is so powerful to a broken world and to broken lovers, that he's saying, I do see you. I'm not surprised by anything I see. I know what you're capable of, and I love you. And my forgiveness can bring new life out of this kind of death. And today we're going to look at one of his parables. He's going to be dealing with like the worst of church ladies. Professional religious leaders who have nothing better to do than to fuss over rules and religiosity, and also we're taking very seriously the Old Testament, very seriously the cultural norms, rules about the temple. So they were people very much like, anybody who's a serious disciple of any of their faith. So they were like that.
Right. They were the pros, as it were, not Dana Carvey on Saturday Night Live as church lady, but the real church ladies that are notorious. And so if you're a church lady out there, this is for you. And
Jesus is going to see them and he's going to give them some tough love. But
well, it's true for all of us. I mean, we are all Pharisees. I mean, it's just what it is. We are all mixed bags,
all hypocrites.
We are all working our butts off. We're all trying to justify ourselves in some way, shape, or form through what we do. And you may not consider yourself super religious or whatever, but you're religious about something. And maybe it's golf. Maybe you watched the Masters this weekend and you're a huge golfer and you are just a stickler for the rules on the golf course. Whatever it is, there's something in your life that you are banking on your ability to do and thinking that this somehow justifies you in someone's eyes. It may not be God's, but ultimately that's the one you're worried about, whether you know it or not. It's actually the fact that you are held to a standard. And if you try to stand in front of that standard, whatever it may be, on your own, you're in trouble. And we all know it.
That's the truth. None of us can maintain our own standards. Forget about God's standards, but even our own standards that we judge everybody else by. We can't even stand up against our own standards.
No. And so we're going to read.
So we're all hypocrites. We're all Pharisees. We're all these people.
This is what we are.
Coming and attacking Jesus.
That's right. We are all that. So this is the parable of the wedding feast found in Matthew 22. And it's a bit long. I'm going to read it for us so that we all are on the same page. But here we go.
And just
what?
A word of context in the book of Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew is told the story, like the historical account. Jesus has entered into Jerusalem for his last week. So he's about to be crucified. He's days away from being crucified. And he's come into the Jerusalem on a donkey's colt. And everybody thought he was going to be the new king. And they were all excited about him. And then he goes and throws all of the money changers, the people who are trying to buy pigeons and sacrifices at the temple. He throws all of that on the floor. And then he does tell some other, parables. And he's been fighting with these Pharisees all week. And he's about to get betrayed and crucified on Friday of this week. So this parable takes place as he is like head to head with the Pharisees,
right,
and temple rulers.
Right. Okay. So he says, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding feast. This is why we're talking about this, because it has to do with marriage, a wedding. So
it's like, what a perfect metaphor to use.
He gave a wedding feast for his son and sent his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding feast, but they wouldn't come. Again, he sent other servants saying, tell those who are invited, See, I've prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fat calves have been slaughtered. And he means little cows, not his legs. And everything is ready. Come to the wedding feast.
So that's the second time that, he sent out the invitation.
Right. But they paid no attention and went off, one to his farm, another to his business, while the rest seized his servants, treated them shamefully, and killed them. The king was angry, and he sent his troops and destroyed those murderers and burned their city.
Yes,
That's hard.
And that's an allusion. So Jesus right now is summarizing all of the Old Testament and the prophets that God sent to the to his
Jews.
people and who they killed. And then this is an allusion. Matthew is like, oh, and when they destroy the temple in 70 AD. So he's kind of looking back and putting this in, that is the final blow of this.
Right. It also is picking up on the exile and other places too, where he sent them all away and Jerusalem fell and all of that. So it falls a couple different times.
Yep.
And so then he said to his servants, the wedding feast is ready, but those invited were not worthy. Go therefore to the main roads and invite to the wedding feast as many as you find. And those servants went out into the roads and gathered all whom they found, both bad and good. So the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to look at the guests, he saw there a man who had no wedding garment. And he said to him, Friend, how did you get in here without a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then the king said to the attendants, Bind him hand and foot and cast him into outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen. So there he goes. That's an uplifting passage. We are going to see how this is good news.
And I just want to say, and then the Pharisees went and plotted how to entangle him in his words.
Yeah, so that was the
and
follow-up.
later they try to kill him.
So this passage he is putting all of this in the context of a wedding feast. As it's metaphorical in the sense that he's telling them this story, but it actually isn't. I mean, that's the thing. When we talk about this, it's not just an idea. All of our marriages are a reflection, a shadow of the true marriage of us to him. That's the whole thing. Like marriage is an institution that God created, and it is to mirror his love for us, his faithfulness to his bride, and the connection that he wants with us, that he designed us to have with him, which is to be one with him. And so that's the important thing. So when Jesus says it's like a wedding feast, he's being
literal.
He's
actually
being pretty literal here. Yeah. He's saying that the father threw a wedding feast for his son, basically saying that he wanted his people to come and be with him and to be wed to his son. And this is the overarching story, as Kate said. He gives us basically his summation of the Old Testament, where he sent people one after another, his servants, to go and call the guests in, the people that were invited. And this is usually, it's referring to the Israelites. And then he talks about how they rejected him. They rejected the servants. They treated them shamefully. This is the prophets. It's referring to the prophets, and killed them, all sorts of things. And then he talked, as Kate said, about the fall of the kingdoms of Israel first, and then the fall of
the temple
later after Jesus had died, and risen after he'd risen. And so this is a big picture of the staples of what Israel thought were signs of their significance, like that we are the chosen ones of God, and that is the land and the temple, and the father in this story, the king, destroys those things to actually, because the main thing, all of those things, as we've said before, are to point to Jesus, that he's the main thing. The point of this is to be married to him, not to just have the gifts, kind of thing, or it's not like the wedding venue. That's not important. It's the actual marriage itself. And so this is how this plays out. And then the crazy thing is after the rejection, and then the subsequent judgment that we hear, he sends his servants out again. And this is now the age of the church that we've come to. And he tells them to go out onto the roads, which I love. You know, when you think about this, think of Roadhouse, the movie with Patrick Swayze. It's that kind of situation where he's saying, go out to where the truck stops are, you know, like go to places where really nothing good happens. The food is not good. The toilets are terrible. And, you know, sex trafficking happens or whatever, you know, like go to the bad places and bring in everybody you find. And so that's when we say the roads, you know, it's a serious thing. I've just said, but what I'm trying to point is this is like the very common places. He's not sending them to the palace or sending them to the temple or to the synagogue or to the church. He says, go out to the roads and bring in everybody. And that is the first good
Which
news.
Is also, it's the first bit of good news. That's for sure. This is all bad news. Well, that there's a wedding feast.
That's true.
And you're invited. You know, that's good news.
That is good news.
But very quickly, it goes to very bad news because everybody who was originally invited rejects it. And then the roads are also, I would say, a sign for people from all different backgrounds, all different.
Yeah, like the highways and byways where people come from to get to places, you know, and it's that's exactly right. It's like going out onto the interstate and calling everybody in. And it says good and bad, or bad and good. And that is it's not a reality in the sense of like, you know, that there are good people, but it's a perception. It's what it's how the people saw themselves or how you as a person would view others, you know, like, oh, that guy's pretty good, or she's a really nice person. And then there's the ones that's like, oh, well, that guy's a jerk, you know, just the perceptions we have of them. And he's just showing this is an indiscriminate invitation. So
indiscriminate, exactly. And it's not that these people were more worthy than the others.
No, they were literally not.
Yeah.
They were actually not, because they were not the original invite. They weren't invited at first.
Yeah, it's these new people are not better than or more worthy. It's just that God used the rejection of the first ones in order to bring in a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah. I mean, this is the Gentiles, you know, there were the Israelites who were invited first. And then now he's saying, I'm inviting everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that is deeply offensive to his audience. As we know, these are the Pharisees. Kate's has set up for us here that's the audience he's speaking to. And that's why their first reaction is, we're going to now find a way to trap him in his words and kill him. Because they get it. They hear what he's saying. And he's saying, I'm now going to bring in everybody. And this isn't a plan B. Like, that's the other thing just to remember here, that it's not like God was like, well, that one went south, you know, like our first plan sucked, so let's go with another one. That's not what he's doing. He was always, as the promise to Abraham when we heard it years ago now, as we've been doing this podcast, the promise was that he would be a blessing to the nations. He's always intended to save the world, to save people from every tribe, language, and nation. So
he was keeping his promise.
He's keeping his promise.
That's always been there.
And he was showing, that and Paul picks this up in Romans 9 through 11, where he talks about the Jews. Did God's promises fail? He's like, no, I'm a Jew, you know? So he does say, like, he called them in first, and then their disobedience actually has resulted in the salvation of the world, you know? And so he's saying there's great hope still, even for the Israelites.
Yes. And Jesus is just undoing any notion that following the rules of Moses makes you righteous.
Right.
Those rules, those 10 commandments and all the other holiness rules were meant to show you that you are not holy and that you need forgiveness and grace. And here was Jesus standing in front of them giving forgiveness and grace, and they couldn't recognize him. But he's also tearing down any notion that you're righteous on your own.
Yeah.
Or that you can just do what God said to do, you know, or that you can love perfectly. Like, he's tearing all of that down. So for the self-righteous person can find themselves in this parable, that Jesus is using tough love. He is seeing their self-righteousness and seeing the hardness of their heart. And he is leaning in. He is pressing on that button and making them very angry in that area and saying, this is not how, it's not your righteousness. God, you are brought in to God's wedding feast. The bad and the good come in there. You come in because of his call to you, because he has called you by name, and you're going to come in through grace. And it's sort of like the second parable that's smushed in here. But those who are wearing the wedding garment are wearing the forgiveness and grace of God. They're not there because they're good people. They're there because God compelled them to come in.
Right. No one gets in the wedding except for those that have been invited, and meaning like people go out and get you. So he sends somebody out to get you, right? In both instances. And so he's gone out and invited these people in through his servants. They've called them in. And like you say, then when they get there, all these people were just living on the street, they were just hanging out. They weren't planning on going to a wedding that day. That's the other part, it's like nobody was sitting there like, I've got a wedding to go to. None of them were going. And then their lives get interrupted and they get brought to the wedding, and he gives them the garment. So like the fact that people were in there wearing a wedding garment, which we don't, for us, it's, a nice dress or a tuxedo, like your nice wedding clothes that you would wear. But they had specific garments that they would give to people to wear to their wedding feasts. And everybody has one because they've been given one when they got there.
Mm-hmm.
And except for this one guy.
Yes, and he was probably wearing his best clothes, but it wasn't the clothes that the host was supplying.
Yeah, he thought he was wearing his own tux, thinking he looked pretty good.
Yeah, and the guy, and they were like, no, that the way in is having this particular wedding garment from this particular bridegroom.
Yeah.
And so
it's only Jesus. It's the only way. You are only forgiven of your sins because of his blood shed for you. And that's, it is liberally offered.
Yes.
But like, so, people get upset about that. It's like, well, that's so exclusive. And it's like, yeah, it is, but that is also, he's God. And like, we don't set the rules, in the sense of like, this is, he has made a way, and it is, Jesus is clothing all these people that weren't looking for it. Like that's the big message here is nobody was looking for this. And he went out and got them and then clothed them and gave them himself. And so the implied message in here, the subtext in this, with this guy who is not wearing the garment, is that for some reason or another, he didn't want the garment. He thought he was fine in his own garments.
Mm.
And that's just an expression of sin. That's just us saying, I'm going to stand on my own 2 feet. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no thanks. I don't want forgiveness or grace from God.
Right. And so that's why he is rejected. He's cast out. And it's a hard word because it's still like when Jesus sums it up saying many are called and few are chosen, he is telling you that there's still something that you don't get to do the choosing.
You're not God.
I get to do the choosing. Yeah.
He's saying, you're not God. I am.
Right. And so he is telling them that this is actually out of your hands. And that is the great offense.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the Pharisees are pissed off. That's why all of us are pissed off. Everybody on earth hates this. We hate this idea that we are not God and that we cannot earn our way and that we cannot show up in the clothes that we think are great and be like, don't you think I look great? And he's like, actually, I hate that.
Right.
Those clothes are hideous.
Right.
Like, I want you to be dressed in this.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Your good works that you've done. The main point, Jesus's parables get so focused, so narrow. You are not getting to heaven because of all that you did for the elderly and the poor and the widows and the orphans. You are not getting to heaven because of the good things that you have done. You are only going to this wedding feast through my forgiveness, through my death for you. And he is squishing all of the narrative, all of the historical narrative of the history of Israel into this one defining moment, being like, I am God, I have come for you, and I want you at my wedding feast, but you must know me. And it's not any of your good works. It's only through my forgiveness and grace. And you've spent your whole life being a professional good works person, but without faith in me. In fact, you're plotting to kill me right now. And so he's squishing this. He gets very focused and very narrow on this one spot. And his parables get very aggressive because he's saying, I see you, and I see the walls of pride that are flying up right now. And I know that you're like rejecting me, that you really hate God, actually. That's what he's seeing into our soul, just like what you said. You hate God. You hate the fact that you're not God. And I see that. And I'm going toe to toe with you. And in fact, I'm going to overcome you.
Right. That's the thing he's doing. I mean, this is him acting upon us. As we say, his word is living and active. He is the word of God, and he is acting upon his listeners, the Pharisees at that time, and then us. And he's putting us to death.
Yes.
He's putting you to death, because that's the thing he's actually saying. When he in the parable, when the king looks at this guy dressed in his non-wedding garment, not the ones that he's given him, he's like, I hate those, not because he's like, you're so tacky, but because he's like, that's actually going to kill you. You're putting your faith in your own dress. You're putting your faith in your own good works, like Kate just said. That's what Martin Luther said very famously, that it's not your sin that's going to condemn you. It's your good works, because that is where you will put your faith. You will say, I'm good. I don't need help. I can do this. I'm standing on my own 2 feet. And that is death. And so Jesus is aggressive against that, because he's like, you're dying. I'm not going to let you die. I'm not going to let you stay in those clothes that you think are going to save you. You know, the emperor has no clothes. I mean, this is the whole, he's like, I'm stripping you of them. I'm going to rip them off of you. And you need my robe. And I am going to give you a new robe. And it's only that. It's only through my blood. And it is offensive. As you just said, it is offensive. That's why we hate it. And that's why it is death. It is an experience of death for us, because it is you being brought to your end. You know, all the things you've tried, all the ways we try every day to justify, all the ways we try to prove ourselves, the ways we try to dress ourselves up and say, look, I'm good. I belong here. He's like, no, all of that is garbage. I want that all to be gone. And I want you to let go of all of that. And I'm going to give you everything you need. That's this message from this parable. I'm going to give you everything. You don't have to bring anything. Come as the beggar on the street. I'm going out to the highways and byways. That's right. You know, I'm bringing you in, and I am going to then dress you and clothe you. And all you need then is to enjoy. You don't have to do anything other than receive and enjoy it. And so that's the great news of him doing the choosing. And it's the bad news for us in our self-justification. It is bad news. This is bad news for us in our efforts and in the ways we think we're going to stand. You know, it is bad news. It kills it. And so we're not pretending that this is somehow going to be a comforting word on that front. If you are sitting there in some place in your life right now and just determined to prove yourself, this is going to rub you the wrong way and it's going to hit you hard. And that's intentional. Jesus is doing that on purpose because he actually loves you. He actually loves you. He knows all this stuff. He knows all the things you're trying to cover up in the facades, like I said, you know, that I have in my life. And he's going to strip all those things off, and he's going to give you something real, which is himself.
That's right. And so, you know, I remember even as more of a child, but even now, this is one of those moments where you're like, Jesus isn't really nice.
He's not always a nice guy.
Like, wow, this is kind of mean. And he's telling this parable being like, I'm bringing other people in, and you guys have, you've rejected me so many times. And so you can't come in at the moment. That's the way it is at the moment. So he's giving them this hard word that's killing them in their sin. He's holding up this mirror. This is what you've done. And so now I've gone and, invited all these other people to come in. But, and he's going to tick them off so much, and they're going to plot, and then actually kill him, 3 days time from this parable. And then, but then he's going to rise from the dead and be like, sin, I'm stronger than sin. Forgiveness is stronger than sin. I've come to give forgiveness and mercy. And then he's going to begin with his disciples, the men and women who are following him. They're going to carry this message, and then he's going to send Peter out into this very same courtyard in Acts chapter 2. And he's going to say again, and here comes not the nice Jesus, but the words of forgiveness. So if God speaks in 2 words, 1 to convict of sin, and 2 to raise forgiveness and grace and raise the dead. So one, he kills your sin with the first one, and the second one, he raises the dead. So all the commands are meant to convict you of your sin. And then he gives the forgiveness, but he gives it through Peter in Acts 2. And Peter says he's gotten filled with the Holy Spirit, and he himself, was pretty prideful, and Jesus took him through a very powerful moment where he saw his sin, and then how profound and personal Jesus's forgiveness was for him.
Well, it's important to just say just really quickly what that was. It's not like we often think that the Pharisees were really bad guys. Peter denied him 3 times the night he was crucified.
This is like his best friend.
Is his best friend. So the Pharisees didn't even like Jesus. It's like,
right.
On one level, it's like, well, I expected them to be dicks, but sorry. But sorry, kids. And but with Peter was his best friend.
Yeah.
So it was the height of betrayal. So it's just important to realize that we are all Peter.
Yes.
We are all Peter.
We're all in this spot.
There is no good person. That's the whole thing here. That's why I said it's, when it says bad and good, it's just perception from us. But what is really going on is everybody is an enemy of God. That's what Paul says. Enemies, dead in our sins. And those are the people that he's come to save. So go on. Sorry, I interrupted.
So through Peter, he gives the word of grace that raises the dead. Let all the house of Israel therefore know for certain, this is Acts chapter 2, starting at verse 36, that God has made him, Jesus, both Lord and Christ, this Jesus whom you crucified. And now when they heard this, they were cut to the heart.
Yeah.
And they said to Peter, so they just, when Jesus was nailing their, sins to the floor here and just being like, this is what you've done throughout all of history, and I'm God, so I was there. And I know you did to Jeremiah and to Amos and to Zechariah, and I know, and he says it a few chapters later. He gives a big long speech about all of the ways that they've rejected God's messengers and rejected his grace and rejected his forgiveness. And so but here are the words of truth again, but this time they're given the grace to repent.
Yeah.
And they do. And God can do that in a heartbeat with anybody. So we see only like a minute of these guys in a window into the story of these guys who keep attacking Jesus. And he goes toe to toe with them in order to convict them. And we see the fruit of it later.
We do. I mean, exactly. That's what, I said at the beginning of this, when Paul's talking about this in Romans, he's asking the question, has God's promise failed? Has it failed? Because he's asking about the Israelites, in Romans, and he is a Jew. And he's like, no, all the disciples were Jews. I am a Jew. And Paul was a Pharisee. Paul was probably quite young when Jesus was crucified. He was probably still learning, he wasn't one of like the head guys yet, but he became one pretty quickly once the church began. And he would have sat there and been like, yes, he would have been amening Jesus dying. And he is the one that Jesus then goes after and turns him into one of his primary messengers in the New Testament. So it's just important to remember that when Jesus does this, when he gives the hard word, he doesn't do it to leave you there. He does it to bring you to himself. And that is what we see him doing. And you're painting the picture that he began this work while he was still alive. Then he rose again, and he sent out the new messengers. Those are the new servants in the parable to go out to the roads. And the Pharisees were a part of that crew in Acts 2. And so we know that many of them came to repentance. And so this is the work of God. He puts to death and he raises to life. And we're all in that boat. And this is the good news of this parable, that actually he goes out, sends people out everywhere to bring people in. And that's our message.
There's a wedding feast and you're invited.
Yeah, come in. And you don't have to bring anything.
No,
I will give you everything. Please don't bring your own dumb coat. I will give you the coat. Your clothes are not the thing you need. You need his, and he is giving them to you.
This, is there comfort in this parable? Well, it does bring me comfort wherever I'm trying really hard.
Yeah.
And I've recently blown it.
He's actually saying you can stop.
And being a parent, being a patient parent, I'm trying really hard to be a patient parent. And when I blow it, he's like, well, you're wearing my wedding garment and you are at my wedding, and you cannot leave.
That's true. I won't let you go.
You cannot leave. And your good parenting is not what gets you in, And so maybe we're leaning on that a little too much. Anyway, so and it's relieving. And I'm like, oh, praise God. But I do want to be one. I want to be one, but you are only through his grace coming out of your weakness. And that's where you have the patience and the humility to do the next right thing.
Yeah. And, more than anything, our kids need us to be quick to say sorry. And then to learn what forgiveness really is, because they are all going to walk into life and be horrible at it too. No matter how much we try. Like, we do our best to raise them well and to set them up to succeed and all that stuff. But they are all also going to be in desperate need of grace and mercy. And that is the main thing they need to hear from us.
That's right.
Is that there is grace and mercy.
And the same thing in a marriage, to be quick to say, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And that we were all brought into this wedding feast, not because we did anything. We were on the side of the road. I don't know.
Yeah. I was at the truck stop eating terrible waffles.
Yeah.
And someone came in and grabbed me and took me to this wedding. And I thought the waffles were good, but now I'm sitting at like a steak dinner. It's that kind of thing. Think of that. We think the Waffle House is good. And he's like, I'm going to bring you to this incredible banquet where everything is filet mignon and it's amazing. So this is the thing. It's way better than we think. Our solutions, our answers just are so woefully inadequate. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous when you think about it. When we're talking about the holiness of God, we're talking about actual perfect love. Our answers are like, I was a really good person today because I didn't snap at my kid or whatever. It's like, well, good job. But he's talking about actual perfect love and freedom, righteousness, in him. And it's just so much better. And he gives it all to you for free. It's a gift. And so that's the message to hear, through all of this, is that he puts things to death. He stops the game. He stops the self-righteousness and the self-justification. And instead, he gives you himself and clothes you, and you are welcome to sit with him at his wedding feast as his own.
And, if you're a strong-willed person or a stubborn person, as I am, we can reframe it by being like, I'm determined, But for those strong-willed, stubborn people out there, I kind of get a kick out of this parable because Jesus is stronger, and he will go. He'll be like, all right, you want to wrestle? We'll wrestle, and he will wrestle with the most prideful, self-righteous people and wrestle them to the ground until they are laughing in this wedding feast, and eating too much and drinking too much and saying, this is wonderful.
Yeah.
This is way better.
Imagine Jacob sitting at the table with you because he did that,
Jacob.
And where he wrestled with God.
Oh,
and the whole thing was that
the patriarch of the Old Testament.
Yeah. The whole thing was that he was going to win. That's meaning that Jacob was so stubborn that he would not stop, that he was going to do that. And so then God, the angel of the Lord, puts his hip at a joint. He's like, you're not going to win. I'm going to have to do this. If you want to go that far,
right,
I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not a surprise to God. He's like, fine, you're going to walk with a limp the rest of your life, but I'm going to get you no matter what.
And
that's the way
Jacob
he handles
loves
us.
it. He loves
he's
it.
Probably
he's like,
sitting there at the wedding table, like laughing his head off. Like, can you believe it? I wasn't gonna give up. He's like, so he's busted my leg.
I was trying to say no. I was trying to say no as hard as I could.
No. Yeah. So I mean, that is the good news for us because we are stubborn.
Yeah.
We are broken.
So whenever you see you're like, oh, she's being really mean right here. Think of it that way, that he is overpowering very stubborn people.
Yeah.
And that's good news for someone like me. You can all pray for Sean at the end of this.
It's true, because I'm not stubborn at all. All right. This has been great. Well, that is the parable of the wedding feast. So we're grateful that you guys joined us today.
Yes.
Thank you for listening. Please share this with your family, friends, and enemies, and anybody, and review the show. And you can find in the show notes our website, where you can check out the other things we do. You can also find a way to support the show, because everything we do is through charitable donations. And then also there's a place where you can send your questions and or prayer needs, and we would love to connect with you. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for your time.